the Emperor's celebration. In the summer of 1807, Napoleon Bonaparte stood at the peak of his power. After years of war, he had just signed the treaties of Tilsit, ending hostilities with both Russia and Prussia. France had dominated the battlefield, and Napoleon had reshaped the European map in his favor. He was not just a general anymore. He was an emperor, a political genius, and, to many, unstoppable. So naturally, he wanted to celebrate, but not just with a dinner or a parade. No, Napoleon decided to hold a rabbit hunt, a stylish, noble activity among gentlemen. It would be a symbolic gesture of peace, a return to leisure after years of conflict. He instructed his chief of staff, Alexander Berthier, to arrange everything. The land, the weapons, the food, the guests and, of course, the rabbits. The plan was simple. They would release the animals in a field, and Napoleon and his top officers would hunt them for sport. A very bad purchase. Berthier took the task seriously. According to historical accounts, he arranged for hundreds, some say even 3,000 rabbits to be delivered. But here's where things started to go wrong. Instead of capturing wild rabbits, which would naturally scatter and run when released, Berthier's men bought tame, farm-raised rabbits. These were not animals used to the wild or capable of running from hunters. They were domestic rabbits, bred in cages, used to being fed by humans. It's not entirely clear whether this was a mistake, a misunderstanding, or a simple oversight. Some say Berthier ordered rabbits in bulk from local farmers who didn't clarify what kind of animals they were providing. Others suggest it was just rushed planning. Either way, the result was the same. Hundreds, possibly thousands of docile, hungry rabbits packed into cages, waiting for their big moment. The stage was set. The Emperor arrived with his officers, the carriages rolled up, the guns were prepared, and then the cages were opened. The fluffy uprising. What happened next was not a glorious hunt. It was chaos. Instead of fleeing into the bushes and scattering across the field like wild game, the rabbits did something completely unexpected. They charged. At first, it might have seemed amusing. A few bunnies hopping toward Napoleon, maybe curious or confused, but then more came. Dozens, then hundreds. The rabbits weren't afraid. They were moving in waves, directly at the Emperor and his officers. They swarmed the field with one purpose: to get food. These weren't wild animals. They saw humans and expected lunch. They leapt at boots, crawled into coats, and even jumped into Napoleon's carriage. Eyewitnesses described it as a total invasion. The most powerful man in Europe was now under siege by rabbits. His officers tried to fend them off with sticks, riding crops, even their bare hands, but it didn't help. The rabbits kept coming, relentless, fluffy, and shockingly fast. The Emperor retreats. Faced with this absurd and unstoppable rabbit onslaught, Napoleon did what any rational man would do. He climbed back into his carriage, probably with rabbits still inside it, and ordered a full retreat from the field. His elite officers' men, who had faced musket fire, bayonet charges, and freezing winters in Russia, were now running from a horde of bunnies. It was a complete embarrassment. The Emperor had planned a grand celebration of peace and victory, and instead he was chased off by a massive, hungry rabbit mob. To make it worse, the story spread quickly. Napoleon never officially commented on the event. Can you blame him? But several of his contemporaries wrote about it. The historian David Chandler included it in his work, The Campaigns of Napoleon, and others have confirmed the tale. It's a reminder that even the greatest figures in history are still human. Napoleon may have defeated kings, armies, and empires, but that day, he lost to a bunch of rabbits. Thanks for watching.